Hello, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Hope you enjoy this video. Hello everybody, this is Josh Bycer from GameWisdom.com. Welcome to another week of Game Wisdom Live. This is the week of October 6, 2016. Once again, this is going to be our live show talking about some game industry topics, as well as recapping what's been going on with Game Wisdom, the site, the channel, and all that. First thing you'll notice, for those of you watching this live, we are doing this at 7:30 EST. Last time we did around 9. I think James and I were almost like falling asleep at the keyboard at that point. It's harder to put on a live show the later it gets, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're trying it around 7:30, and we're going to see how this time works in terms of viewership and in terms of having guests and more people on. If you have any comments about it, be sure to let me know below. So, to begin with, we had a very interesting up and down this week in terms of good and bad news. Bad news, we have not gotten any new Patreon supporters, unfortunately. I've put up the early bird pricing for a lot of the rewards, and I'm going to keep that up until the end of October. After that, they will all go away, and we'll just have the regular pricing. So if you would like to support Game Wisdom that way, and would like a little discount, be sure to check that out. Now, in terms of some really good news, we actually had a record-breaking number of subscribers this week, getting 51 subscribers in 7 days.
Rock on. Woohoo!
That is impressive. I would like to thank everyone who has been following or sharing these videos and the site. It's definitely been exciting. I mean, we just hit 700 last Wednesday, and now we're already on our way to 800. And like I said in the 700 video, the big milestone will be when we hit 1,000, which at the rate we're going may even be by the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of you who have been paying attention, I've been asking for votes regarding the next Let's Play on the channel. I'm still planning on doing a Phantom Brave Let's Break soon.
Ooh.
Which is going to be crazy because I haven't finished that game yet. So that's going to be fun when I have my strategy guide somewhere in my stack over there that I'm going to have to bring back out of retirement. But that's going to be a very interesting one. Also, another game that is currently in my view is Shenzhen.io. And wow. I guess to start, for you, James, do you know the company Zachtronics by any chance?
No, I do not.
They are an indie developer who makes some of the most brain crazy puzzle games out there. They're puzzle games, but they use real world logical thinking, including pseudocode for programming, understanding object oriented programming, assembly line programming, stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
These are games that if you can play them, there's a good chance you could probably get a job as a programmer. That's how challenging they are. And they just released their latest game, Shenzhen, which is about building circuitry and programming. And it comes with literally a 45-page instruction manual that goes over how to program the game. Like you would get like a owner's manual back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who bought the special edition of it, he actually mailed you a binder that has all the papers, like what you'd get like the first day of your job, kind of thing.
Are you sure this isn't some elaborate hiring tool?
That's what I'm thinking. I think like if you beat that game all the way, you'll get a link to a job.
You'll get a job.
And my God, the games are. They are so interesting to play with. They are really hard unless you have the right kind of thinking, and if you have like that background or the ability to understand programming, you'll go far with this. But if you don't, this is one of those games that's going to take you some time to play. So they just released that one literally today, as we've been as of the stream, and I played it for about 10 minutes. And I could feel my brain starting to smoke, so I had to stop playing it.
Oh, wow.
And maybe I want to do more streams and recordings of it, because I did a how to play TIS 100, which was their last game, and that was pretty much about learning assembly line programming. And it sounds like, it doesn't sound like it should be a lot of fun, but it's how it's designed that makes it just such a fascinating game to play.
Huh.
The game before that, Infinifactory, was about assembly lines. You build assembly lines to construct like spaceships and machinery and stuff like that. And you
Okay.
basically have to figure out how to build the assembly line out. And it's a fascinating game, but it's one, again, that this is one of those games that you'll either play for 5 minutes and you will love it, or you will just back away slowly, never to look at it again.
Yeah.
But I definitely want to do more with that, and like I said, I am going to look into starting the Phantom Brave Let's Break. I
Mm.
still have 3 more videos of the Skea that are getting ready to get put up. This is me finishing the normal play. And for those of you watching this, even though those videos are going up now, I've been playing the Skea on and off for like the last month or two. Like someone said, this is a game you could spend almost 1,000 hours, maybe even more, playing if you want to see it all.
Oh, definitely.
So for those of you who want to see more to Skea, I'm going to be going by sort of a 100 view rule for future videos. Every 100 views we get on a video, that will give me sort of the impetus to make another video. And I'm also going to be doing that with the Darkest Dungeon as well, because my how-to guide should be wrapping up. Now, as I was telling you about this, James, it seems like all this popularity is gaining notice because I'm getting a lot more YouTube claims filed against me for a lot of
Yeah.
my videos.
That's good. That's good. I mean, you're not gonna get famous without being infamous as well.
Yeah. So it is putting a somewhat of a hold on the latest Darkest Dungeon video. I submitted the copyright claim, but I think just to get people to watch it, I may just put it up while I wait for, the fair use, either yay or nay, to come in.
Hmm.
But here's my question for you, James. As I said, with the 700 video trying to pick the next Let's Play, what would you like to see? And right now the choices are split in a 3-way tie between playing through Mega Man 1 through 6 of the Legacy Collection, and maybe even doing Mighty Number 9, a play of the original Alone in the Dark, the first game to really do survival horror, as
Hmm.
well as Resident Evil 1 Remake, or plays of the latest Hitman game. That's the 2016 reboot, sequel, pre-boot, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's kind of funny. I haven't heard or seen Hitman in quite some time, and haven't played one myself since the
Hmm.
PlayStation 3 eras. I'd like to see what's going on with Hitman
Uh-huh.
nowadays. Now, is this the newest? You have the newest Hitman?
Yeah, the 2016 one.
Yeah, I'd actually like to see how this one's kind of holding up and what it's doing with the genre, honestly. So
Hmm.
I feel like everything's going. Everybody's going so retro so many times, and it's like I had nothing wrong with retro, but I'd like to see some current stuff that's going on.
All right. Well,
So my vote is for Hitman.
all right. Well, we will see. And for those of you watching this, either live or recorded, if the game that I pick isn't the one that you're looking for, I will be running another vote when we hit 800 subscribers. Which, considering this last week, we may be hitting that sooner than later.
Hmm.
But let's, I guess, move on. We have a few topics to talk about this week. For this first, in terms of posts, this has not been a good week for me, just simply because I did 2 podcasts in a row. James, you were a part of the first one, and that one went long, and then you missed the second one, which that one went long as
Pretty
well.
long. Yeah, yeah.
I know, for you, like, you're still getting into the swing of things with the podcast, but again, you missed the first year when we were having like routinely 2.5 to 3 hour long casts,
Oh wow.
and my
Yeah.
voice was dead. This was long before the likes of streaming and
Uh-huh.
YouTube came into the equation.
Yeah.
But the 2 casts were definitely very great. The one you were in for most of it. What did you think of it?
Oh, I loved it. I think it's great. It's definitely really good to get a chance to hear from other people as much as I love yours and mine dulcet radio tones.
Hmm.
Um, it's really cool having a third person, a third voice really accompanying us too. So it's
Hmm.
definitely good.
Yeah. And those two casts, considering the backlog that I have, you probably won't be listening to them for at least a couple of weeks from this live stream. But they're going to be really good ones. Tomorrow's podcast is going to be with, let me just quickly get their actual name before I blur it out wrong. Let's see. Because it's a recently started group. Here is the National Video Game Foundation. And this was the group that's designed in order to help preserve video games.
Ah, yes, I remember, yeah.
And about making sure that we can actually, I guess, keep them for future generations. Mm-hmm. So I spoke with two of the founding members of that. Mm-hmm. And that is going to be a great cast. I want to have them back on again. I think they're both in London, though, so it's going to be a little tricky time-wise. Mm-hmm. And to sort of slightly give you a hint, one of the podcasts I did this week was with a developer from the UK, or from London, so that will be another interesting one when the time comes.
Oh, definitely.
But yeah, be sure to tune in for that tomorrow. It will go up at some point. My goodness, I still have to edit it, do a stream tonight, and also get the critical thought for today posted. So it's definitely going to be a busy time.
Well, it's good. If it's busy, that means there's stuff to do, and means that it's worth it. The site's growing.
Yes. And again, for those of you watching this, thank you so much once again. So the first topic that I talked about this week is about randomization in game design, or how to define randomized elements. This is one of those discussions that it's not really something that gets talked about a lot. One of the things I think we've specialized with Game Wisdom is talking about abstract concepts and theories. Stuff, again, like how to make a game replayable. When is a game too hard? When is a game too easy? Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to randomization, in the post, I talked about the two main elements of it. Whether it's macro layer, things that are basically used when the game is generating new content, either like a new system, new types of gear, new enemies, or the micro layer, which is essentially the elements being moved around. So, sort of like what houses will appear in what order, or the layout of a level. And it's one of those things that, as someone who's played so many roguelikes and randomly generated games, I've gotten really good at being able to pick out these elements, but it's still very hard to properly explain them. So here's a question for you, James. Since I know you've mainly kept to the consoles where we really haven't seen too many randomly or procedurally generated titles that have hit that, of course with recent exception to the Darkest Dungeon. Before Darkest Dungeon, have you played any games that you like that were about like a randomly or procedurally generated experience?
Oh yeah, not Darkest Dungeon. Rogue Legacy is a randomly generated experience. And this is another thing that I've been saying too. I'm just really grateful when the PS4 came out. One of the biggest reasons why I bought the PS4 was for the indie games and the games that normally would not have come out on console, that now the PS4 has gotten a chance to do. And with that, has especially in the indie community, has come the re-rise of the roguelike element of the roguelike games. And there are there's a game I really want to play, and I just have not picked it up yet, and it's called Enter the Gungeon, which just got released on the PS4, and I really want to get that. And I know I'm gonna enjoy it. I thought it was comic. I mean, I saw the previews for it, and I thought it was just comically funny, and just it's a game I know I'm going to enjoy. But it's also one of those games where it's multiplayer, and I definitely want to grab some friends and just make an evening of it. Like I will. I mean, props to the people that create. I think that's Revolver. Is that Revolver? Or Devolver?
Devolver's the publisher. I don't know the developer off the top of my head.
Yeah, but definitely. So yeah, I mean, it is popping up. You're seeing it more in console gaming. Yes.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that would have to be thankful. Would be thankful to Demon Souls for really starting to introduce like the hardcore difficulty. And it was like really following Demon Souls that we saw this resurgence of roguelike and roguelite games on the market. Everything from FTL, Binding of Isaac, Spelunky, Rogue
Yeah.
Legacy.
Oh yeah, yeah. Binding of Isaac too. I played a lot of Binding. I beat
Oh,
Binding of Isaac. Well, I beat Mom. Let's put it that way.
oh
Not my
yeah.
mom. Mom, I love you for listening to this.
Oh yeah, I love the Binding of Isaac. That was one of the first games I started to stream here on the channel.
Uh,
And wow, I think I have over 200 to 300 hours playing that game.
Although they should put a disclaimer in, if you play this game, do not describe this game to anybody that doesn't understand this game, or
Hmm.
normal non gamers. If you try to describe Binding of Isaac and what you're doing currently, it will definitely raise some red flags and might get you on an NSA watch list.
Yeah. Oh yes, it's one of those games that either you've played it or you don't talk about it. You don't want
Yeah,
to bring this
yeah.
up in play conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I was like trying to, because my girlfriend was watching me play, and she's like, "So what are you?" I'm a naked baby in
Hmm.
a basement running away from my mom who's trying to kill me, and I'm shooting my tears at Satan and his buddies while other headless fetuses run around and squirt me with their blood.
It makes perfect
What?
sense.
I understand everything that's going
Hmm.
on. Anybody that's played the game understands. Everybody else doesn't.
No. And it's one of those games that like the second Nintendo saw it like on their list, they're like, nope, we're not touching that one.
Oh, definitely not. No, Nintendo's going nowhere near that.
Hmm. And from my post with like the randomized elements, when it comes down to it, the more macro elements that are in a game, I think, makes it more replayable. These are things that are basically going to be considered or used when the game procedurally or randomly generates something.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've noticed, especially from playing so many games around these kinds of genres, is that it's very easy to pick up when things are repeated. I talked about We Happy Few a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, I
Now,
said that, yeah.
even after like 2 or 3 runs, I started to see the same elements again and again and again. And it's definitely one of those challenges of games that are trying to go for long lasting replayability. Oh, excuse me. Well, I think my allergies must be getting to me. My voice is starting to go. But for you, James, I guess when you start playing like a randomly generated game, like with Rogue Legacy, what did you think of that game in terms of keeping you invested to keep playing?
I think it's a really wonderful tool as far as keeping me invested. It's one of those things like it's impossible. You will have to get bored of the gameplay,
Hmm.
which you would have gotten bored of the gameplay anyway, even if it
Hmm.
wasn't randomly generated, in order for you to lose any interest in a randomly generated game, because it keeps you on your toes. Things keep changing. You have to adapt your strategies. It really gets you more intimate with your character. And it's weird because like there's a lot of different elements as far as randomization, because like in Rogue Legacy, your character is just one of many in
Hmm.
a whole. And I think in their game it was like ancestors, so you always had you always kept playing the children of the guy that just died, and you got to pick from one of three of the children, and it gave you different stats and elements too. That part kind of got a little, I might get a bad roll on a child if I die. I might get a, you know what I mean? As far as the dungeon roll was concerned, that wasn't that big of a deal. It's like, oh, cool, different dungeons, different layout,
Hmm.
cool. But as far as my main character that I'm trying to progress the game with, it took me a while, and I think a lot of console gamers, as a console gamer, and I could see other console gamers finding a little bit of fault on that level. If
Hmm.
my main character is the one that keeps changing, and we've come from generations of either it's a static character like Mario, or it's a character that I've customized, I'm
Hmm.
like Skyrim. And I think we gamers are so used to that
Hmm.
that it throws us off a little bit. And I think that'd probably be the only thing that would really throw a console gamer off
Hmm.
from roguelike games.
I'm curious, when you spend more time with the Darkest Dungeon, what you're going to think about the punishment mechanic of the game and how it is Iron Man rules when a character dies.
Yeah, my jester died actually.
Oh.
My first jester died, and I if I know that going in, and here's the thing, like,
Hmm.
if you have some of the older console gamers will remember a game called Fire Emblem,
Hmm.
and you could really pull somebody with that. I literally could go to somebody who's a Fire Emblem fan and go, play Darkest Dungeon. Well,
Hmm.
why? If you like Fire Emblem
Yeah.
and you like Final Fantasy and the old school Final Fantasy, this is the game for you. It's like Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy with a splash of Dark Souls.
Hmm.
You know what I mean, as far as the mood and set.
Yeah.
So, and I think that actually, and that got me because I like the Fire Emblem series. So that kind of gets me a little over. Okay, one of my guys is gonna die. That's okay. Yeah.
One of them, I think you're going to be changing that to in about 2 days of play.
Oh yeah, so I've heard.
That tide is just going to keep on turning there.
Mhm.
And overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to be really interesting, I think, to see what Darkest Dungeon is going to do on the console side of things. Because
Yeah.
again, when we talk about the rogue genre or roguelike, roguelite, that has primarily been a PC,
Oh, definitely.
especially an indie side of things. But I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. And for those of you who missed the news, they've announced the first expansion to the Darkest Dungeon coming in 2017.
Oh wow.
Something to do with blood, and there's a very haunting image, a teaser image out there for it.
Mhm.
But I'm excited to see about that. And definitely I'm going to ask you more about when we talk next week about where you're at in the game and what your thoughts on it. Because I think one of the issues I had with the Darkest Dungeon was that it kind of dips, I think, near the end because they're just as you kind of lose a lot of the means of progression. But
Yeah.
that is a topic I want to save for when you're further in.
Yeah.
Now, with randomization, I think a major genre or procedurally generation, major genre that has done this would be the survival one. And I think we talked
Mhm.
about this either last week or the week before that. But I think you said that you didn't play too many survival games, right?
Yeah, kind of, but that's kind of changed a lot
Mm-hmm.
actually within the last again, ever since picking up the PS4. That's
Mm-hmm.
really opened up the I've played Don't Starve, loved it. I have 7 Days to Die, loved it. There's a couple other ones that just aren't coming to me right now, but yeah, I've been playing them more
Mm-hmm.
recently, so
Yep, and that as a genre has definitely made use of random and procedural generation to keep it going.
mhm.
And it's one where if you don't have enough elements, it becomes very easy to pick apart, I think. Like I said
Yeah.
with We Happy Few, it's very easy to start seeing, again, like the man behind the curtain when it comes to them building the world.
Mhm.
As an interesting note, I just found out the game that I was talking about on our cast a few days ago, Clockwork Empires, they
Yeah.
are officially releasing it or turning into 1.0 the end of October. And I kind of have mixed feelings about that, to be honest. I think the game has definitely been coming along, especially the last 3 patches, but
Mhm.
I'm not sure if it's at a point where I would call it 1.0 or one or at least ready for a retail release. It
Hmm.
is a good game, there's no denying that, but it's definitely been one of those challenges in terms of convincing people to play, especially when you have early access. And again, we could easily spend 30 minutes on early access alone.
And what's this game called again?
Clockwork Empires.
Oh yeah. Okay. Hmm.
And I think the challenge is going to be when it's released, what will people think about it? Especially the people who have been following them over the last, I believe we're at 55 months of updates so far.
Oh, wow.
And I know Clockwork Empires, I think it only took them like 20, I want to say like around 30 before they got to consider 1.0. But
Mhm.
again, apples and oranges, two completely different games.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to like these kinds of event generated games or event focused titles, the macro elements would definitely be the events themselves. What can show up in the game to I guess mix things up and change things. And it's one of the things I really want to see more things happen with like games like Subnautica. Now, you mentioned I think Don't Starve a few minutes ago, James,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I liked that game, but it kind of felt like it got a little repetitive over like once I started really play it a lot. What did you think of it?
Yes. It does get very repetitive, and I think
Hmm.
the randomization element is kind of what leads to that repetitiveness.
Hmm.
And I almost feel like it has to be repetitive
Hmm.
because of the randomization. You get to the point where, again, I remember we talked about this before. Every time you die and don't starve, it becomes a basic necessity grab because you
Hmm.
can't, because it's a total reset. It's not
Yeah.
even a, oh, you keep some base stuff. No, it's a total reset. So you literally are resetting from
Hmm.
so you're back to gathering sticks and stones again, and that can, I mean,
Hmm.
when it becomes like the second or third time, you're like, okay, I'm getting the hang of this. I'm getting
Hmm.
the hang of this. You get a little bit further and further every time. But when you've done day 20 and you
Hmm.
die and you start over again and you're like,
Uh,
I gotta collect 800 sticks and stones again. That's
hmm.
when it like the base elements are
Yeah.
when it becomes collecting the base elements over and over again gets boring.
Yeah.
It really does. Uh, and yeah, and I think again that's where I definitely agree. I think the randomization elements it hurts. It hurts the game.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, when the basic is just the same way each and every time, then
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter how randomly or procedurally generated your world is if I'm spending the same 20 to 40 minutes doing the exact same steps each and every time.
Yeah.
And I think one thing to keep in mind is that randomization or replayability is not one of those things that is automatically good or bad. We've seen some amazing games that are purely linear experiences, just
Mm-hmm.
as there are horrible games that just throw everything at you in terms of generating a world. I
Yeah.
know another good example of a game sort of like in the middle is that Stardew Valley got its big 1.1 update this week. Have you played or heard of Stardew Valley, James?
Oh, I've heard of it
Mm-hmm.
definitely, and mostly from you and from some other friends. But
Mm-hmm.
no, I've not actually played Stardew Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I heard it was like basically like it's like not Farmville, Harvest Moon, kind of
Yeah.
like Harvest Moon.
It's pretty
Mm,
much like an elevated take of the Harvest Moon Rune Factory kind of games.
okay.
And it really is a lot of fun. I streamed about an hour of it a few nights ago. I'm going to be posting that on YouTube. I want to say either tomorrow or Saturday. Trying to test the waters if people want to see more of that game. I know a few of my friends who are just addicted to that game. They really got into like the story and interacting with the characters. I treat pretty much just like farming. Like I'm trying to build the biggest farm and make the most amount of money while being a
Yeah.
hardcore dungeon crawler guy who runs around fighting monsters.
Mm-hmm.
My idea is that this is the prequel to the Darkest Dungeon. This is how I amass my fortune, and then I go insane, and that's what happens.
uh,
Someone should combine Darkest Dungeon with Stardew Valley. And
with
they, yeah,
Stardew Dungeon,
yep, there we go. Uh,
Darkest Valley. That's
uh-huh.
funny.
Hmm. So I figure at the end of my game, I will go insane and try and summon the occult to my land there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go play some more Darkest Dungeon. It'll be like I'm continuing my story.
Yeah, that's funny though. I think that'd be hilarious. Would you start off as a farmer and slowly lose your mind?
Hmm. And then you finally snap, and then you go over to Darkest Dungeon, and then you're trying to stop things there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's funny. That's hilarious.
Now, the other topic that I want to talk about, we are about 30 minutes, I think, into the stream, maybe a little less than that,
Yeah.
is VR. Now, this is one of those topics, again, that we're not going to be talking all about this in the next 30 minutes. We've had multiple casts. Our mutual friend Ken, he is the VR evangelist. He's the guy who will. We ask him what he thinks of VR. We'll be here for 2.5, 3 hours easily.
Yeah.
But it's a topic that has certainly gained more and more traction. In fact, if you're watching this live right now, there will be a critical thought up after this live stream talking more about VR. For those of you watching this record, it should already be up. But it's a topic that we're seeing more and more traction in, especially over the last few months. As we all know, the Oculus Rift was released, the Vive, I think Google Glass is out now. As of this stream, I think we're either a week or a little bit more away from PlayStation VR, which is going to be Sony's use of VR for the PlayStation 4.
Yeah.
And as I said in my post in the Critical Thought, what that means going into 2017 is for that year we will officially have a VR market. So, James, since this is the first time we're talking about the two of us, I want to ask you a question that I've asked so many people over the last 3 years. What do you think of like VR? Like, what do you think of this trend of VR right now?
I like that you called it a trend. Let's put it this way. I feel about VR what I feel about like I feel about what was Jesus No Man's Sky. I feel like No Man's Sky. I feel like VR is a beautiful thing that could lead to something better. That could lead to something better, but by itself in its first form, it's gonna be sloppy. It's going to be sloppy. It's going to be very media heavy. The very fact that the media, like mainstream media, is like, oh man, VR is the new thing. It makes me more leery about it because it's like, then it's probably not going to be the new thing if everybody knows about it. I feel like it's one of those things that if somebody gets a hold of it and does something good with it, it could be a really good direction for gaming. And I say a good direction, not future, because and I separate those two things in the fact that good direction means I think we could learn a lot from VR. Whether it becomes the future or not is irrelevant. I think we can learn a lot from VR, and I think that's I'm not jumping on the VR hype train. I think it can do a lot of good. Let's see what kind of tools it gives us and where we can go from it. That's what I want to.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you. I think I spoke with a developer about this like 2 years ago who talked about the more practical applications of VR, software simulators, helping people with therapy, and even just getting AR into our lives. I think that stuff is fascinating.
Yes, very much so.
But none of that really is standing out to me when we're talking about video games. And that's, I think, where my concerns are. Like, all the games that I've seen for VR, yes, it's a great immersion, but why would I buy this specifically for video games right now?
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, the price. While you were talking, James, I pulled up Vive's website. It's $800 to buy that.
Yeah, so, and that's, I mean, video gaming has been moved. That's why I don't think it's going to be the next thing in video. Not to say that I don't think it's going to be the next thing in video gaming. Like, video games have, I mean, we just switched to the free-to-play model. Like, you know what I mean? So you would have jumped to the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Video games have always been something that to succeed, they've had to appeal to a bunch of people. Whether those people were nerds with with a bunch of money and had nothing to do for an afternoon and went to arcades, to current gen where you had a bunch of people who want the latest sports game because they're really into that kind of they're into sport, whether it be football or American football, and then when you have those two things, you have a large audience who has just enough money to get the thing that they want. Yes, but when you have a huge price point for something that's supposed to be next gen, groundbreaking, no, you're not going to have enough support behind it. Again, real world application, yeah, I could see it being used for many other different things, but video gaming, it just seems very I think like it's going to be conflicting with video gaming. So
yeah, and I just said an update. It looks like the price has gone down since I last looked at it. So the Rift is $600. The Vive is $800 right now. Yeah. But it's still very much out of most consumers' general price range. And again, we're talking about first generation hardware. Same thing like when we first saw video cards back in the day when they're like $400 or $500, like a Voodoo 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I'm just not seeing the potential for video games. I mean, for the people who are the tech enthusiasts, the guys who are going to buy the latest and greatest stuff, I think they're going to fall in love with this stuff. Like they just announced the Rift Touch, which looks like it's going to be like controllers, like custom controllers you can use for VR.
Yeah.
But again, for someone like me I was looking around to show games, so unfortunately all my games are digital now, so I can't show you a collection of games behind me. But for people who have tons of games, like, why should I spend more money on something that's just simply there for immersion? Now, of
Yeah.
course, I know people will say that immersion is, it's going to make you play these games a lot better, but again, I don't really have an extra $600 to $800 to spend on something like that right now.
Hmm.
And that also raises the other point. There's so many new pieces of hardware that are being developed. There's the Omni treadmill and a lot more kickstarted and crowdfunded back hardware pieces that we still have to see what they're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess for you, James, are there any elements of VR that you are excited about, or at least have piqued your interest?
Uh, are you talking about like new things in video game development?
Or just like the applications of VR?
For video gaming.
Or just for anything in general?
Okay. Well, I did see something for medical stuff where it was like
Mm-hmm.
a VR program where like they could take out the human heart and like
Mm.
show like a diagram where new students could actually like spin it around and like
Mm-hmm.
interact with it and stuff like that. And I think medically it's gonna. I think medically,
Mm.
and I haven't seen anything yet. But if it can be medical, then I think
Oh.
a short jump over to architectural,
Mm-hmm.
where imagine just jumping into you want to build a house, you're an architect, you want to build a house, or you want to build a scale model of the house. You can no more, blueprints are going to be going 3D and interactive. I mean, they're going to go
Mm-hmm.
VR blueprinting. I think will be a next step, and stuff like that. Now, as far as video games, the only thing that I think, if it becomes commercial, I think Telltale could really do something with VR, where
Mm-hmm.
you're not just putting you into a story. And let's put it this way: I want to see Telltale just grab every book they can get and start making like. Where is the Lord of the Rings Telltale game?
That would be.
I want. Imagine that, or a Lord of the Rings VR
Mm-hmm.
Telltale game. Because I think one of the biggest problems with VR right now is it's not caught on big enough to get like big other genres in. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how much better was gosh, what was the fungus Joel, his and the little girl, the fungus people, the fungus zombies, Last of Us. How
Mm-hmm.
much better was Last of Us made with good voice acting and good like actual
Mm-hmm.
actors getting involved? Take that into a VR spectrum, like, and give it to
Mm-hmm.
Telltale. Oh my goodness, yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
that would be amazing.
Yeah, now we did see they did the Batman VR experience.
Yes, yeah, I heard about that. I haven't seen anything on it yet. Have you?
No, I have not. It sounds interesting, but I think you're right, James, that we haven't seen that. Oh my God, I need VR because I want to play this game yet. But
Yeah,
like the idea for simulators, or again, like doing like virtual architecture, build something in real time that you can go into and see what it looks like.
yeah,
That's the kind of stuff we were looking at, like they were talking about in science fiction during like the 80s and the 90s.
mm-hmm.
I mean, that could
Yeah.
be very exciting. Like, imagine being in like a real place, turning on your AR glasses, and you can sort of see the building you design in real time in front of you, in the place that it could actually be standing in who knows how many months or years.
Yeah, yep, very much so.
And that kind of stuff, that I think, from what we were saying earlier, that fascinates me about VR and AR. But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to games, I'm just not a big believer in it yet.
Yeah,
It's going to take, like the quote unquote, like a Demon's Souls or some kind of massive experience that we never thought was possible
mm-hmm.
to change my mind. And the question, though, is will that actually come? I don't know.
I don't know.
I spoke with developers a few months ago who were making a game for a new smart television. They made like a popular trivia game, but it was exclusively for like the latest like super high def smart television. So it sounds like it's a great idea, but it's not exactly something that's going to make me run out and buy, like a several $1,000 TV to play.
Yeah.
And I just don't know if we're going to see something like that with VR, because again, when it comes to games have always been something we interact with a gamepad or controller. So to try and design something that's going to not use all that and make it something that is unique is going to be a very big challenge.
Yeah.
Because again, if they make a really good VR game, but I can still play with my keyboard and mouse, then why should I spend the extra 600, 800, whatever dollars to play it, with the whole setup?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's of course the space argument, which we talked about earlier. I don't know about where you're at, James, but I'm kind of limited in space. There's no way I would have the room for any of that. Like, did you see they did something like The Floor is Lava? They have a VR game like that.
Oh yeah. And again, that I could see the rich and well apartment furnished could enjoy something like that, but I don't think the common man is not going to be able to have that. I mean, look, the Wii, like remember when the Wii controllers came out and people were smacking each other around. I mean, that fit, but even with nowadays you have to move some things around just to get the Wii in there, but yeah.
Yep, and it's going to be, I think, very similar to that with the motion controls. Like, I remember, again, people were saying, oh, motion controls are going to be the wave of the future. We're never going to see anything else like it. It's going to be amazing and fantastic and blah, blah, blah. And then 2 years later, nothing. And I guess that's actually another interesting question I just want to ask you about, James, again, since I think this is our first time we're actually sitting here and talking. Yeah. What did you make of like the motion controller or the motion fad of like the late thousands?
It was fun to get grandma off the couch. I mean, grandma couldn't tell you what a Wii was, but she could play tennis pretty good. So, you know what I mean? It was. I felt like it was fun while it lasted, and I'm glad it went to Nintendo because it did not go good for anybody else. I think Nintendo was probably the best person to make use of it. You know what I mean?
But I think that actually leads to a bigger question, probably a talk we could spend another 40 minutes on easily, about, even though like Nintendo was good with motion controls because they're the ones who originally came up with it, but as we saw, it was very hard to get third-party developers interested in making a game around that.
Yeah. And
even then, the ones that did, it was sometimes considered, like the gimmick. Instead of reload, shake your Wiimote. You don't need a button, just shake the Wiimote and that will be it.
Yeah.
I think we saw at least a little bit better in terms of creativity with the tablet for the Wii U. But again, when you have these very specialty UIs or interfaces, it really limits what you can make. I keep bringing up my little example, which I don't think you can see this, James, since I'm not streaming myself on Skype, but I have my 360 controller, or my gamepad right here. And again, this thing and just this foundation has become standardized among game developers and consumers. And that has gone a long way towards making it easier for people to play, because that is the standard. Same thing, we can't have 27 different kinds of currency in the United States, because that would just make things fall apart. So, and again, when we talk about like the 90s, especially with the original era of VR, everyone was trying to be that standard and made things very, very confusing. I mean, I still remember my first ever time I picked up a PlayStation controller, and I was like, wait, there's 2 buttons on the back? What kind of madness is this? I'm never going to remember all these buttons. What's this? Yeah. And now look at us with 2 analog sticks and all that.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I mean, look at the differences between like the Nintendo, the original NES, to like the controls we're using nowadays. 4 buttons. I mean, 4 buttons and a cross pad. And even with that, like all the Atari people were like, 4 buttons and a cross. What is this?
We get to feel
wizardry?
old once again. I think that's the lesson.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be, again, I think with going back to VR, it's going to be very interesting. I think 2017, I think it's going to be a very telling year for what we're going to see with VR, at least when it comes to video games. From what I was talking to the developer about last year, the stuff that we were, dreaming about, the advancements in VR for simulators, AR, stuff like that, we still probably have a few more years down the line until that technology is perfected.
Yeah.
But you just never know. And again, who knows what 2017 is going to bring? What will be the next big Kickstarter trend, or even just the big trend in general?
Yeah, very true.
All right. Well, again, we're at that point where we could easily jump onto any other topics. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we can get into about now. Do you have anything you'd like to bring up now, James?
Not that I can think of. No.
Alright. Well, we're about 45 minutes in, so I think maybe we'll wrap it up for the live show this week. Next week, we may actually have a guest joining us, so I still have to hear back from him in terms of his schedule. And for those of you watching this, either live or recorded, if you would like to appear on Game Wisdom Live or be a podcast guest, we're always looking for new people to talk to. Send me a message here, email me, josh@game-wisdom.com, and we can talk more. Other than that, once again, thank you to over 750 subscribers here on YouTube. Hopefully, by the time we do our next show, there'll be even more. Like I said, if you're watching this live, be sure to tune into the Critical Thought coming later tonight, and there'll be more critical thoughts based on horror throughout the month of October. And we'll still see about what game to do the live play or do the let's play of next. If you haven't voted yet, please let me know. Otherwise, I think that's going to do it. So, James, thanks so much for coming on tonight, and we'll be sure, hang out again next Thursday.
Yep, sounds good, man.
All right. And for those of you, thanks so much for watching this episode of Game Wisdom Live. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for the podcast, another critical thought, and we'll talk to you again next week around the same time. And again, if you have any comments regarding the time that we started airing this, be sure to let me know in the comments below. But anyway, once again, this is Josh Bycer from Game Wisdom, and I will see you all then. Take care. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, and of course share with your friends. It always helps out. For daily posts on all manner of game design and industry topics, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the site and everything that I do, be sure to check out the Patreon campaign. If we can hit goals, it will mean more content for everyone to enjoy, and I'll be able to support myself and my household. If you want to follow me, you can find me on Twitter at GWBycer for updates throughout the day and random thoughts from me. And lastly, you can find me on Twitch right over there at GWBycer for daily streams most nights around 10 Eastern. Thanks again for watching the video, and be sure to check out more great content coming to the Game Wisdom channel real soon.